in terms of a simple definition, heritage is what we inherit. But a lot of people think of heritage as a positive thing, all the good things we inherit. So our cultural traditions and ways of life and connections back into the past. And that's all very true. But heritage can also be negative. We can inherit debt, we can inherit national shame, we can inherit soil erosion and environmental degradation. So I think you've got to think broadly about what heritage is generally and how we need to look at it. When heritage initially started to rise in the 60s and 70s, it was something broadly dealt with by communities, and in fact you could trace the evolution of heritage back to the late 19th century in Australia, and then the rise of historical societies, for example, in the early 20th century. And they basically were the custodians of our historical heritage and our cultural heritage, in some museums as well, but most of them were amateur. After World War II, you get the professionalisation of history and archaeology, and heritage moves into becoming professionalised in the 70s and 80s. It's now actually become an industry, a huge industry that has a lot of technical standards around it about assessing significance, about a whole range of things. There's legislation about how you deal with heritage, and there are manuals and technical guides as to how you assess significance. So in a sense, heritage on one level has actually become so industrial and so professionalised, it's actually moved out of the communal public realm. And I think that's something that school teachers and students should be actually examining in the course of their studies about heritage. Whose heritage is it? Who examines it? Who determines what's significant and why? And what do we preserve and what do we destroy? And a lot of heritage departments in Australia these days have actually become authorities for approving the destruction of heritage, not actually preserving it. It's a big political issue, and it's something that I think everyone studying heritage in schools should be looking at. A community may actually be in a better position to assess what is significant and what the community wants to keep, not what a specialist who has very, very rarefied ideas as to what that heritage is comes in. I was at the Parramatta Female Factory last Saturday at an open day, and I was actually in a place where women were incarcerated, young women were incarcerated, and they actually scratched messages in code on various pieces of wood and various pieces of stone. And an archaeologist would not be able to decipher those without talking to one of the inmates to actually find out what these things mean. So there's an example where the significance of heritage would be completely obscure if you didn't actually work with the people whose lives and experiences came out of that heritage and created that heritage.